It's loading. Okay, now we are live. Okay, hi everyone. Hello, hi Anthony, hi Vivian. Yeah,
Hi.
let me check the Facebook site and let me refresh to see whether the live stream is working. Let's see. Okay, yeah, it says it's live now. I think it's going to lag around 13 seconds from here to there. So I will be monitoring that site, the comments also. So if any of the audience would have any of the questions, they can type it in the comments in the live stream chat, and then I will kind of read it out to the artists. Okay, so anyway, hi everybody. So today we have here Anthony. Hi Anthony.
Right.
And Vivian. Hi Vivian.
Hi.
And I'm Jai. So Jai, I will be like the moderator of this talk. And the order of the talk is firstly, Vivian and Anthony will be going to sharing about themselves and their work. And then after that, we'll go into a bit of a chit-chat discussion about issues surrounding the work and their work itself. And then in the end, we'll have some time for Q&A. So without further ado, yeah, Vivian, please.
Right. Okay, so yeah, nice to meet all of you guys. I'm Vivian. So my name is Lam Ga Bao, Lin Jia Bao. So I always got a feeling like Vivian is not my real name because I'm from Hong Kong basically, but I'm born in Singapore. So that's why I always like more tied down with my own Cantonese like original name Lam Ga Bao. And yeah, this is me. Because like I feel like this picture represents me well. Like no matter my inside, my personality or like my outside is always kind of like noodles, thoughts, and like messy-ish like this. Like my thoughts are always like tied together. So yeah, it's something like this. So like yeah, I may not express myself like in a very clear manner or organized way. So I try to make it clear. So yeah, I born in Singapore, but like I see myself as more of a Hong Kong because I go back to Hong Kong since I was small. Like although I born here, so I spent pretty much all of my time in Hong Kong till last year. I moved back to Singapore. So this is. So yeah, Singapore is always like a very special place to me because since I was small, my family would always like remind me a bit here and there, like oh, you were born in Singapore, like maybe one day you will make your move back to Singapore to like see how can like carry on or explore more or something like that. So yeah, it's kind of a very interesting feeling that for me to explore my hometown again like this. Yeah, so yeah, this is it. So then I want to take some time to share about how did I take my art education as well. So I did my art degree in Hong Kong because I took all of my education in Hong Kong. So my school is Hong Kong Baptist University, and is because it's more like a art sharing session. So I think it would be nice to share like other art school, how is it like, and yeah, if there are any audience like would like to share how is like Singapore art school like I would like to know more as well. So you guys can just like type in, and Gerard will read it, I guess. Yeah. So yeah, my school is Academy of Visual Art. Is we always call it in the short form AVA. So it's actually kind of special for the place because it's a British leftover place. So it's a former Royal Air Force office, mess, and is categorized as a Grade 1 historical building. So it's not something very common that we can find in Hong Kong, and especially turn it into an academic space. So this is the spot. So it's like on a little bit uphill. So every day, and you can see the architecture is still in a very colonial British style. So this is the main entrance. And every day we have to climb on a lot of slopes back to school, and also stairs. So you can see they still kept the whole architect itself. And also, like, how do they build it is a very nice, like, it is a granite stone. So it's like, so happen you can find it in around Bukit Timah as well, the same kind of material that they have it a lot used to. So yeah, this is the place. It's like very nice, and I always like. In fact, all of us like took a lot of pride that we feel very blessed as well. Can have such a nice environment to do paintings, do drawing, do sculptures, and work with the space to do different kind of installation. And they kept all of the old architecture style, the arches, the stones, and also like bomb shelters. We will have students, classmates to do installation everywhere, especially during like midterms or final terms. Then you will see a lot of artworks like this everywhere. So actually also trains us to do like more site specific work. Like works has to be more like it's not very like a white cube kind of museum-ish artwork. It's more like getting in touch with people kind of artwork. So it trains our mindset to be more like this. Yeah. So moving on. After I graduate, I work as a ceramic tutor. So like make some work with some of my students, and it lasts for around a year. And after that, I moved to be a gallerist. So basically, it's just art administration jobs. So yeah, this is a photo of me like after putting on a show, and like, whew, finally done, relieved. So those years last for a couple of few nice years, but then of course I didn't like just only like work kind of life. So I still try to find my time to do my own artwork. So this is a photo that actually I was graduate from my uni, but I still like sneak in like back to the studio and just grab a corner and like paint secretly. And yeah, like when I need to enter the school campus, I still use my old student pass to get in. So yeah, just find a place for me to continue my creation, continue my work. Yeah, so this is it. And
Is
like,
this Vivian? Is this in Hong Kong or
this is in
Singapore?
Hong Kong. This is still back in Hong Kong. Yeah.
Hong
So I
Kong.
was, yeah, trying so hard to like working as a art administration, because art administration and like doing your own artwork is very different. I guess like many art students will share the same experience as well. And yeah, also like very lucky that have some shows happen here and there, something like that. So, and then I just felt like it doesn't feel right. Why I have to do something that I like after my work, and then I'm very tired already, very exhausted from work already, and then I have to still like sneak into a studio or like go, or even after that I have my own studio, but then it's still very tiring. Like why I can't have my full energy on doing artwork. It's just like something I feel like is a little bit twist. So then I decide to give up the art administration job. Then I moved back to Singapore because I want to start something new. I really want to like have a place to still continue my artwork, but also have some like new inspiration. So I want to change the environment. So I start with the easiest place that I could think about is Singapore for me to start with. So, and like Hong Kong and Singapore is like kind of similar in some sense, but if you dig out more, the culture is actually not that the same. So it's just a very different and a very unique experience for me to be in my so-called like hometown again. So when I get back to Singapore, I also managed to like find out some administration job first, and then now here is me doing some setup again, and now I'm continuing to do more of my pottery. So yeah, this is me when I was working in a pottery studio, like chilling. So and then so far it's quite, I find myself is quite lucky that I still like manage to do quite a decent amount of creation in Singapore, and like so far exhibited some of my work and in some of the art space in Singapore. Yeah, so here are some pictures. So and then moving on is my artwork with power play. So this is the artwork that I put on. This is just a mock-up. So the title of the artwork is Crepe Jasmine, Raincoat, Clay Pot, Mask, and a Flag. So what I did is I put on paper mache on the selected 5 objects. So which is the crepe jasmine, the mask, the clay pot, the flag, and the raincoat. So these are these objects in different sense. They reminds me of Hong Kong, like differently in their own way. So actually it's like behind these objects, they all have their own like very symbolic meanings. So and then on top of that, because I cover them with paper mache, and the paper mache is like made of Singapore newspaper. So then it's kind of like inside it reminds me of Hong Kong, but on top is a very daily object. Is you can find it everywhere, especially maybe for the flowers. You can see it everywhere in Singapore. And then like objects are very like is a very easy kind that you can find on the street as well. So yeah, it's in some sense that because I feel like according to power play, like the power is influencing our mind, like even we don't know. It's really depends on how we brought up, what we have been taught to, how we taught to understand things, how we taught to read things. So it's like if to you this object doesn't mean anything, then it doesn't mean anything to you. And for those who see, who can link, who can associate with something, then like which means there's something to you. That's why I tend to put on paper mache, put on a very factual description artwork title, because I want to put on a very, I want to blend out the identity of all of the objects. So yeah, that's the intention. So yeah, this is pretty much the artwork and how I see power is in our life, and like how do I associate with myself, with my like experience as well around there. Do you guys want to ask me anything?
Thank you, Vivian. Yeah. Oh, is that the end of your talk, or you have more to share?
It's around there.
Around
Like,
there.
you guys can, yeah. I guess we will like have more conversation as we go on.
Yeah. I think okay, because instead of asking you questions first, I think we can let Anthony present on his himself and his work.
Sure. Sure,
And
sure,
then
sure.
later on, then we will start into the discussion in a more free manner.
Mm.
Thank you, Vivian. Yeah. Hey, hi, Anthony. Okay, wait,
Right.
let me share your slides. Yeah, you do your.
Why
I can
don't
add
I
it
do
to
it from
the
my
live
end?
stream.
Oh, okay. I will hang on.
Let's see. What does this do? Oh. Okay. Yes.
Can you see it?
Now it's on the screen.
Okay.
Yes, now it's in full screen mode.
It's in full screen mode, right?
Great.
Okay. Yeah, I shall start. Hi, afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending the talk. So I'm Anthony, and I'm a multimedia installation artist. My works by and large reacts to geographical tensions as a response to being on this little island state that is susceptible to external factors. To share a bit about my practice, allow me to show you two works whose subjects are closer to home. The first work is Doa Selamat. The Johor-Singapore Causeway was built under the British Colonial Authority. It was built to ease the congested traffic of goods and people crossing the straits. Because prior to the causeway, the only means of transportation between the two states were ferries and boats. As the British are stretched economically by World War I, instead of a costly bridge, a rudder causeway using granite was proposed. So just now, Vivian mentioned about granite in the university. The British does the same thing here as well. So granite was readily available at both Pulau Ubin and Bukit Timah. Officially completed on June 11th, 1924, the causeway's 5-year construction period involved more than 2,000 workers and consumed about 2 million cubic meters of granite and stone. Much of the mostly granite formation hills in Pulau Ubin was quarried to below sea level to provide the needed material. Title of the work, Aidor Selamat, refers to the occasion where the Sultan of Johor, Ibrahim II, and the Mufti of Johor poured ceremonial waters into the straits during the laying of the causeway's foundation stone ceremony. The causeway provided an economical and efficient transport solution and encouraged the movement of both goods and people between the two locations. Although it became the only physical link between Malaysia and Singapore immediately after the separation, it has also developed into and continues to be a source of tension. Since the blasting for granite stopped, the deep quarries left at Pulau Ubin naturally became filled up by rainwater. So this rainwater was collected. A piece of granite was then gathered from the causeway to be used as a master to replicate a mold. Rainwater from the Ubin quarry was then frozen using the mold. The work responses to the causeway as the link between the two states. To keep the ice in its form and state, effort is required. In this case, refrigeration. The work was commissioned by Pro Art Mag as part of our Heartlands initiative. The second work that I will share is Point 20 Sliver. It is the work submitted and shown as part of PowerPlay 2020. So a bit of a background. The work was created as part of O Passport, organized by O Open House. And it was created in response to the venue of the Arranged Art Residency. The beautiful home of a wonderful household is sandwiched between the neighbors, between the first and the third floor, which means basically they occupy the second level in this walk-up apartment. Christoph and Sharon was the couple who offered the residency. The project came primarily from the nationalities and work experiences of the hosts. Christoph is French and a finance specialist and is now a Singaporean PR, while his wife Sharon is a Singaporean who has spent much of her time working in Europe. So to me, they were the perfect representation of human mobility in a highly globalized world. I was also attracted to the architecture of the host home, where the residents are in close proximity to one another, creating inevitable apprehension. Christoph and Sharon's residence is situated on Everett Road. For those who remember, Everett Road unfortunately was under the limelight for dispute between neighbors. I was confronted by this contradiction between a highly globalized world, represented by Christoph and Sharon, versus the concept of borders, which is exemplified by Everett Road. So I went on to the United Nations website, extracted all 138 United Nations registered territorial disputes. Their specific geographical coordinates were charted and then consolidated. Referencing Christoph's profession, being a finance specialist, a ticker system was selected and basically symbolizes the global free flow of capital. So that in turn was subverted to display the geographical coordinates. The ticker display was fabricated to mimic Singapore port limits drawn up when the maritime dispute happened in 2018. Upon completion, the ticker was set in the common garden behind the walkout apartment. Strangely, none of the residents actually used this garden at all. Forming a low barrier, the ticker was partially buried into the ground. The list of coordinates in the display flows in from and exits through the boundary wall, visually connecting the work to the public alley besides the garden. That's actually the two works that I wanted to share. Thank you very much.
Oh, sorry, I'm muted.
I was wondering how come
hey,
there's no.
thank
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the works is amazing at night, huh? Very visually capturing and at the site-specific space, you know.
Yeah, I basically most of the works are very
anyway,
site-specific and responsive.
Okay, so thank you, Anthony and Vivian, for being with us here today. And also, like I forgot to mention just now, but Erica won't be able to join us today. She's not feeling well, so it will just be us today. Yeah. So moving on, I think we'll go into our chat. Firstly, okay, I see a question in the Facebook Live, but I will go into that later, and I will actually pose the first question to two of you guys first. I mean, looking at both of your sharings, and also the theme of this talk is intersection. So actually, I saw both. Actually, Vivian, like your experience. Thanks for sharing your experience, like being in two different countries and being a global citizen. And also, Anthony, like your work also deals with border disputes and globalization versus nationalism. So a lot of the theme, a common theme in your work is definitely something about mobility, something about intersections between like different interests across borders. So would you want to go in more into how you relate to this concept in your work?
I think by and large, my main interest in geopolitics is the fact that we live in where we live, at the tip of a peninsula, and the necessity of running a very open policy becomes essential, so that we can prosper and we can survive. But at the same time, there's this great sense of fragility. I think maybe it's got to do with something to do with age. I'm much older than you guys. So when I was growing up, the experience was, you can say that it's a little bit of the kind of like growing up experience has always been lined with this sense of danger, that bad things will happen soon if you don't work hard, if you don't, be aware of what's happening around you. And I think that naturally drove me towards what I do. So I would say that the reason why I chose the area to kind of like explore, it's almost instinctive.
Just like mentioning the thing about your coming from maybe like a different generation and stuff. I mean, even Erica is also quite young, and also like I'm also definitely, me and Vivian are definitely like younger, and we really definitely hear a lot of stories of like our forefathers in Singapore, and a lot of respect to what they've been through. I mean, like we hear that early narratives of like nation building, and also building like a national identity, things like, especially when we kind of separated from Malaysia and we have to kind of, make it on our own. So I kind of get where you come from in terms of like there is maybe not so much of a sense of fear. There is definitely a sense of fear and survival up there, but also like a sense that we would have to define what we are and protect our interests, even though we are kind of situated in a very cosmopolitan nexus of the world, being a port, a maritime port, right? And also moving on to Vivian, like it's interesting that the both places that you live in, Hong Kong and Singapore, are both like former like British colonies. What do you think about that? And also maybe just going back to the question that I asked before, you're free to respond to that too. Like how do you respond to in terms of the cross-pollination and cross-border thing in your work?
Yeah, in fact, I didn't think of like doing like cross-border theme artwork on purpose. It's just because like I'm like really rooted to Hong Kong. So whenever I want to do something or I have an idea about that, then that must be like coming from my very personal experience, which will just be natural, like is related to Hong Kong. And like in fact being in here, because what like we Hong Kong nowadays we talk about is always about Hong Kong, like how is the situation right now, like how will Hong Kong be going, like how can we move on? It's always something like this. But like being in here give me another experience, that because in some sense also Hong Kong people sometimes they will compare Hong Kong with Singapore. They compare in like we are also both small, and we are also both such a not bad financial hub. And why Singapore would able to stands out and would able to like succeed in some sense, like and Hong Kong couldn't be, something like that. So that's one level. And another level is like actually Singapore like also have their own history, have their own like a lot of like the history with Malaysia, history with like other countries as well. So it's like and it's another level again. So
Okay, yeah. So actually, Also, one thing I realized is that because Vivian, you mentioned something about the personal, right? And a lot of the items you choose, you mentioned are also like quite everyday items you see in like either your in Hong Kong and in Singapore, like the clay pot, like the jasmine, the crepe jasmine flower, and everything. I mean, the question that goes on the Facebook by let me see, by Ryan, is asking, can you explain a bit more on the reason behind the jasmine flower? Okay, this is also linking to the next question, is that it's like not just to Vivian, but also to Anthony, because you actually responded, the work was responding to a specific site and also to a specific like um, issue that happened at the site, and also especially like family, which is very kind of personal in a certain on a certain level. And also Vivian, you are coming from definitely from a very very personal kind of on one level a very very personal kind of kind of way of making the art, right? And so like how okay, the question is, there's a superimposition of the dual layers of the personal or subjective aspect and an aspect of the impersonal, which is talking about issues broader than maybe yourself, maybe talking about society and the world, globalization, something bigger than you. So would you be able to elaborate on the relationship between the personal and the political in your work, and maybe also talking about how then you draw upon your personal experience in your work?
Me or
Anybody can start. Yeah. Okay. Ladies first.
yeah, it's always
Quoted by Anthony.
yeah, it's okay. Yeah. So answering the question from Ryan from Facebook, the jasmine is actually the flower of Hong Kong. Is Yanzi Gang. So it's the like yeah the country. Sorry, I mean the flower.
It's the flag, right? They have the flower there.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So that's the flower, and yeah, and it so happened that the shape is exactly the same kind of shape, and yeah, it's just only I can see it in Singapore. I didn't see it in Hong Kong because it's actually a different species of flower. But then so often they share the same shape. Yeah, so that's it. And yeah, and actually I find out this flower with my one of my very good friend in Hong Kong when she came to visit me in Singapore, and then we just so happened to like walking down around Orchard and we see the flower, and then she was like, oh, isn't this the like Hong Kong one? And I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah, I think I can show the because the flower is actually the one at the roadside, right? Like the tree, there's a pink one and the white one, and then when you smell, it's like that's a very nice smell, right? Yeah, I'm going to share the screen. I'm going to show the flower. Wait, let the audience see. I think most of you guys would have seen this in Singapore. Okay, what's my screen sharing? Share. Okay, this one. Can you see it? Yeah, right. This one, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I go back to the talk. Okay, yeah, you guys can continue talking. Sorry about that. I just got excited with the flower.
Okay. Yeah. So and then like back to your question is like for like my artwork is addressing into like a more it's starting from a more like personal level, tied with a more like personal experience and emotion, starts with that. And then like how does it like become into like something more like bigger than myself, and like also how it links to the society and things. I guess it's like once you start to care about like what is happening around you, then like is your value, because like to be honest, if back then it didn't Hong Kong, it didn't happen anything, I don't think we would have so much emotions with looking at the news happening right now, looking at the like wars is like happening right now. We won't even like notice that much even, and besides of that, without this thing happen in Hong Kong, like I don't think I would even like so want to know the like past history of Singapore as well, because it's like I would feel like in different place in different times, things happen, and like it's kind of like whether you are into that or not, and like if you're into that, then like it's just like very intuition reaction that you will have a reaction to that, you have a feeling of that, because like you're human, right? It's just a very like human being natural like reaction. So yeah, it helps us to like care about more and understand more. Of course, it's a very like unfortunate thing to happen to like make you to care about other things. Yeah.
But also like just to also make an observation, because you actually mentioned about using paper mache to kind of like put over these things. So it's kind of like almost from this objectivity of the symbols, like all these objects are actually like kind of there's symbolism in them, right? And in on a personal level and also maybe on national level, in cultural levels, the flower, a clay pot is very cultural, as a cultural symbol in some way. A flag is a political symbol, and like you kind of use the paper mache to kind of erase the
Yes, it
cover,
is.
yeah, and at the same time, the paper mache itself, you also mentioned, are like what newspaper clippings from Singapore about political issues, or what was that?
Oh,
Like,
it wasn't especially like political issues.
mm,
It's like Singapore
mm,
newspaper, but I use like every language of
uh,
the newspaper. Yeah, because in fact that I wasn't planned.
mm,
It even like haven't come to my mind yet before, like until I went to the newspaper store, then like I noticed that, oh yeah,
mm.
never like really goes into my mind. There are more than one languages of newspaper in Singapore, like but like four languages.
So you're kind of using, is in a way, it's like you mentioned before that you were trying to, uh, in a way, your entry point was quite personal, but then you also bring in the impersonal aspect by kind of erasing the surface symbolism of the items in your work. Is that what you were trying to say? And can you elaborate
Yeah.
on that as well?
Yes, I tend to erase the like the very symbolic meaning, especially if a flag, if it's without any symbol, without any like text or any color on it, like it's basically just a plain cloth. So yeah, it's really up to the viewers to decide what do they want to understand, like beyond that, or what do they read, how do they understand that, what is it to them really,
Mm,
because yeah, because maybe a clay pot to like people are just like, oh, clay pot, but maybe to Hong Kong, if there are any Hong Kong listening, then it's like a bowl, then bowl die, like the bottom of a clay pot, and it's actually means something.
mm.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, thank you, Vivian. Anthony, do you want to respond to the questions?
I think first and foremost, I personally feel that the the idea of personal and social political, they cannot be separated.
Yes.
Uh, basically, they live within and around one another, and like it or not, it affects each other in a very big way.
Mm.
So I don't see this disconnection or neither a need to separate the two. And I feel that for me personally, especially when it comes to dealing with work that are very site responsive and specific, the context in terms of venue, in terms of geography, in terms of architecture, will naturally affect my work. And that is nothing that is very deliberately done. I think it's really like what Vivian said. It's an instinctive response. I know, and I guess what then is critical is how do we bring out what we feel about that particular time and space, and especially the space itself. And for me, typically, I will basically go back into research, go back into history. Things are what they are because of what had happened before. So that's typically how I do it. And as far as symbols are concerned, I basically just use symbol as ready-mades, honestly. I mean, to me, symbols are kind of a representation of a very abstract idea. I know it has been, I really love this word. I mean, it's kind of like a crystallized form of an abstract idea. So you can say that I'm kind of like lazy. I just use them, and most of the time tend to use them as a form of critique. Wow, that was loud.
Wow. Big brother is angry.
Yeah, I must have said something wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you brought up the notion of symbols. I mean, definitely both of your works deals with symbols pretty much. I mean, actually, I want to zoom in a bit more to Anthony's work, where you actually mentioned you responded to the site and also the particular family. So it's a kind of interesting parallel between the micro narratives and the macro narratives that we live in. So can you elaborate a bit more on that? And then we go back to the thing about symbols later.
Yeah. So because the piece of work for Point 20 Sliver basically was a art residency. So the idea was that I spend a month with the family and then create that piece of work. Although I didn't physically kind of like stay there, but because it's actually very near where I'm living, so I go there very often. I talk to the couple, and I kind of try to extract whatever that that was available on that particular time and space. So what I make use of technically is really the fact that there is this micro concept of territory of conflict, but at the same time I'm facing this Christoph and Sharon, who to me is really they're like the golden child of globalization. They go anywhere to work around the world because they're able to. So they're so highly mobile. And that kind of formed the background to what I was working. So in a way, I'm using a very micro concept to talk about a much bigger topic.
Yeah, it's very like we love your work we love having your work with us in Power Play, because like power definitely is something that is ubiquitous in our daily lives too, like in the micro narratives, like what you say, we cannot ever run away from politics, we can never run away from power, we cannot separate ourselves from the systems and ecosystems we live in. So like you're right that in a way it's like we can't separate the personal from the political in a certain sense. It's just that I really love seeing that in your work, like zooming in and zooming out. I mean, you kind of see the parallels between like how it plays out within our daily lives and on a larger scale too at the same time, And like going back to the whole thing about symbols is that like because you mentioned using symbols as ready-mades, so like in the way, could I say in the way that like every culture, every groups of people, we all live with symbols. I mean, we cannot run away from symbols. Language itself consists of symbols, and like therefore, like when I say a word is a ready-made. It's a ready-made symbol, you know, and it's like what Saucer says about the significator and the signified, right? And so all these symbols are there, and so you kind of use this abstract ready-mades and kind of and then like use it in your art. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, so it's fundamentally what I do. When I guess I tend to do that when it's available, when this ready-made is it's accessible, depending on the subject I'm dealing with. Yeah.
And also, like Vivian, in a way, it's like your work is using ready-mades as symbols, right? Like it's like in a way, opposite in a way. It's like you're using like literally like a clay pot and a flower, and then with these, like it comes with inherent symbolism. But by putting these together in a certain context, you activate the symbolism in the work through encounter and through putting them together.
Yes.
Yeah. Because I mean, when I walk down, I mean, we look at all these items are there in our daily lives, but different people look at the items in different ways, right? So how would you then kind of like elaborate a bit more on your process of then, in terms of your own personal and also the audience looking at the items?
Yeah, like what you're saying is very true, that like it's like activating the symbol. And in some sense, it's also like if the viewer doesn't try to read them, or like they don't try to read them in anything, then the activation is not there. Then, which also means that it doesn't like construct the complete artwork in some sense.
Is it important to you then, because the putting together of these symbols are quite deliberate, right, in a way, but at the same time that you're also erasing the subjectivity by the papier-mâché in a way. So there are two levels in a way that you want the audience to interpret the work in their own way. At the same time, you're also deliberately setting up the work in a certain way. It's like, for example, I would say that if I walk down the street compared to your Hong Kong friend and I see the same flower, like the way that I would think about the flower is very different. Yeah, right. Yeah, like you're inviting the audience. Is it important for the audience to kind of come in with their own kind of symbolism to the work? Like,
yes. Yes, it is important to have that part. And what I feels like, because at first when I first saw is the theme is about power play, it's about like invisible lines. That's the first thing that come up in my mind. Because also trace back to when I was here. So I feels like, we are both like most likely are Chinese, and we share like the culture is okay, in some sense is quite different, but there is something like in common as well. So when I was trying to share the news, I mean, like also share how I feel. Basically, is more focusing on how I feel, because I really felt that back in like a year ago. So we got a very different way of understanding things. Even the news that I'm receiving are very different as well. So it's just very interesting for me to have this have this experience that I never expect that we will feel differently. I never felt that maybe I'm like on one side I'm so upset about like something happened, but on the other side it's just another normal day, and when I like walk out it's just like nothing happened. But while like I couldn't let myself to leave my phone, to leave the live stream, to leave the news, like I really want to stick onto it. So it's just kind of like in a like parallel time zone. Then like I got this kind of bizarre feeling. So that's why I tend to like put this on to just let people to uh, uh, elaborate whatever they see themselves. So yeah, because I'm not I won't be trying to force you to understand or you have to feel like so or whatever thing. Because I believe like we are all individual and we all are different. Even we come from the same place, we still have different understanding. It's just the era, the differences of understanding on the same thing would be smaller. But there are still differences. Yeah. So that's how it is. And especially if talking about how to place the symbol. At first, this the mock-up, maybe I could share a bit.
Okay.
Okay, the mock-up is okay.
Yes.
It's like this, right? Because I didn't know that I got a chance to hang up a piece, so I thought I would just like having a wall and a table, like a flat surface to display. But then after I found out that I got a chance to actually hang up something and actually like give it a lot of color that I could hang up the raincoat, because like this is the whole symbol. It read it in this way. So it like
I'm curious, why didn't you
matters.
you choose to hang the flag too? Like, is the why do you try to put the flag like flat on the floor instead of hanging it, like, normally a flag would be on a pole.
So yeah, this is like before what I've done with the raincoat. I fold it and I fold it up nicely and then like cover it with paper mache. But then I just remake it once I found out that I could hang something on, because I like after I know like I could use the ceiling, then I just already quickly made up my mind. I just want to hang up one thing, then that would be the raincoat. Like, because it's just something happened and yeah, it's more important.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, Ryan says, thanks, Vivian. Make it how you wish. A raincoat can keep you dry in today's weather, but to some viewers, it does represent an important day in our life. So, Ryan, that's Ryan's comment to Vivian.
Yeah.
He's from Hong Kong, so he probably knows the symbolism behind it.
Oh, and yeah, and actually when I was making this, because I mentioned about the like, it's kind of like a very bizarre way for me to being in here. And for making this, it's kind of like an emotional way out for me as well. So I really hope that for people outside, like away from home, who are lonely, like when they like have a chance, like if ever this exhibition came like across to them, like will can have some like emotional way out, like as I did. I hope so.
Thank you, Vivian. I mean, Anthony, do you want to come in any way, or?
No, I think it's definitely a trauma, right? I mean, for those who are involved, and I think especially being physically away from where all the changes are actually happening. So again, the idea of the space. So yeah, I do feel for whoever that were involved.
Yeah, and I also have so much respect for the people that are involved there, especially the young people. They are being like so personally involved in all these issues, and I can sense. I mean, I just want to understand, Vivian, where you come from. That you say that, like, and even Anthony is like, we cannot separate the personal from the political. I mean, we cannot like close one eye and like be what's that term, like apathy, like live in ignorance and stuff. Although there's of course this weird split duality where I go back and I'm drinking my bubble tea, and at the same time it's like, oh, and then I'm looking at the news, and there's these two levels of reality that we're living in. But in the end, we are all still interconnected in some way, and that's why this talk is called intersections. And also, like, just maybe bringing up a bit of like our previous conversations with Erica. I mean, she's not here today, but just a shout out to Erica. I hope you get well soon. Yeah, that like it's also going back to maybe this whole thing about like being involved in all these issues. I mean, like being concerned. I mean, I do think that, I mean, as artists, we are definitely like concerned about these issues, and therefore like we make work and we want to maybe in some way, I mean, enacting social change is a huge call, but maybe like bring some awareness, express something, express what we thought, as how we relate to it, or maybe make other people see things in a different way. But like, what do you think is important for people out there to also be involved and pay attention to these broader issues besides our own individual narratives, but the narratives that are going around us?
Definitely. Yeah, because I believe like if you feel bad about what is happening around you, then like yeah, and like the other things happens to other places, like it's real as well, and it's just happen. And like, in fact, sometimes it's a bit helpless seeing all these things happen.
How do you then negotiate between these two feelings then, like the compassion or empathy for the issues that are happening, and at the same time that feeling of helplessness, or maybe even some angst? I have friends that are
Definitely.
like they are quite, they can be activists, or but they feel a sense of helplessness or angst. Like, what would you say to these people? What would you feel? Do you feel that too? How do you negotiate these two feelings?
I guess like it sounds very trashy, but it's real as well. It's just like we all need to learn, and we are all learning. I guess it's just like this. And what I would like to say is, I won't say all of us, but like, for example, me back then was quite innocent, because like I would just be like looking at all of this, like things happen, all of this, like how do all of it, like back to the topic, like power, like hijacking us, and like it's just like, oh, like one bad thing happened, oh, like back then the history happened, something like this, oh, this happened, but it doesn't like link to you at all, right? Like until something very like close to you happened, then you start to linking the dots and like starting to really have like empathy. And yeah, and I guess like it's always it's good thing that if we trace back to the history and then learned and see what happened before, like, yeah, you will see definitely you will have your own realization.
It reminds me of what Anthony said, right? He always goes back to history.
Yes.
Yeah, but I think there's this I think this question of like activism and art, how could it possibly interplay and kind of work with one another? Actually, as an artist, for me, I personally do sincerely feel that using art as activism is extremely indirect, and therefore it is also very inefficient when it comes to trying to raise issue. So for me personally, when I create work, yes, those are the subject I dabble with, but I do not for 1 minute feel that I have a role to play here in trying to create awareness.
Mm.
You know, it's just my own, in a way, it's my own personal response to what I see, what I've learned, and what I've researched. I don't claim to try to use it as a way of creating certain kind of message to be sent out to the masses. You know, that's never my intention, because I do feel that art is just so inefficient when it comes to fulfilling that task.
Yes, yes. Mm. And would you say that, like, I mean, not just Anthony, it's also the Vivian. Like, would you say that, like, this kind of making art itself is just is also a way to kind of express, or maybe to figure things out for yourself in terms personally, in terms of how you encounter such issues in your life?
Like how to like encounter.
I mean, like how you encounter, like, so remember just now you say like, you cannot not care, but sometimes you also feel that you're helpless and stuff. But so like, is art then a way also to kind of then make you to help you kind of express this, how you feel and how you think about such things?
Yeah, definitely. Because it's just like, for example, if I'm not an artist, if I write, then I would write.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like a form to express ourselves. In fact, if for I believe it's not just artists, no matter like I mean like artists who make art or writer or like whatever form of art, you are just like regulars, like I mean common people, like you will have your own way of seeing as well. And in fact like during like daily life, like your every move is representing how you think, how you feel. For example, like what kind of shops that you are going for, like are you like trying to support more of the locals or what, or like it reflects.
And it goes back then again to like narratives again, right? Like even the micro narratives and macro narratives, like what Anthony looked at the micro and the macro, and also even Vivian, like you says that your personal narrative versus like the audience looking at your work and their at the work, and their narrative also coming in their interaction with the work. So it's like, you know, having a respect for all these narratives in the work, and that's why like in a way like what Anthony mentioned is that like art is such an inefficient way to maybe like kind of to do activism. I mean, to put it bluntly, to like enact social change. I mean, there are more efficient ways to do so. But like art, there is a place for art to really bring out all these narratives in a way, right? Like to kind of even the personal, or maybe like to or to the audience, be it the audience narrative, be it the personal narrative, be it like the micro or the macro narratives. Like, what do you guys think about this?
Okay, for me, my background was actually a designer. So prior to becoming a fine art artist, I was doing commercial work. And in commercial work, because I dabbled both in industrial design and graphic design, specifically for graphic design, it's all about communication.
Yes.
So I do feel that if you want to do, for example, propaganda, graphic design is definitely way more effective than trying to use fine art as a vehicle. And that's why I fall back to what I said just now. Fine art is inefficient. It's not that it's not good, it's just inefficient. For the same amount of effort you put in, it's just not going to be it's not going to give you the return that you expect. Yeah.
If you're expecting anything in return, lah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, just to the audience, 11 of you are watching right now. If is there any questions you want to pose to the artist, you can type it into the chat now. We have like around 10 to 15 minutes before we close the talk. But if not, then we can actually wrap it up earlier. But please write your questions down in the chat. Yeah, Ryan says that all these items, I think he's talking to Vivian. All these items are in our daily lives, essential yet also shows how the power struggles we all have in our daily lives. Vivian, do you feel anything in response to that statement? I think Ryan is from
Yeah,
Hong Kong.
definitely. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, his
Yeah, thank you.
Facebook says.
Thank you for tuning in. Yeah, and you guys also mentioned like yeah, definitely understanding like for someone like being in somewhere like is not in the same kind of time zone, but having someone understanding you is very like heartwarming. And just I want to like react to what Anthony mentioned just now. Like there, because he also mentioned fine art is a not very efficiency way to send a message or like to do something. Definitely yes, and there are a lot of things are not efficient. In fact, like when you think about it, all of the so-called efficient, are they really efficient, right? It's always debatable, right? So I guess it's more like your own belief. What do you believe in? If you believe in, then you will just like no matter how small are the step or like how minors are the things that you're doing, you will still be conscious. For example, like you care about the environment, then like you won't even consider like having disposals like in hawker center or buying a drink, or you just bring your own bottle, right? This kind of thing. So it's more like I think it feels like a more like a life project for everyone, and everyone have their own life project.
So it's really about the individual responsibility too, right? Okay, so I think that there are not much questions. Let me have a last check through the chat. Okay, yeah, there's no questions. I think we can actually wrap it up soon. Yeah, so thank you, Vivian, thank you, Anthony, for joining us this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank
Really,
you.
very nice to sleep in. Thank you for all the audience for tuning in. I think this live stream will be up for replay on our Power Play website, website and our Facebook. So any of you, if you all want to rewatch it again, you are free to do so. Okay, yeah. Thank you so much, and we thank you for the time and all the effort that you have spent into this presentation and your work with us in Power Play.
Thank you.
For having us.
Thank you, Anthony.
Bye
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right. See you guys. Bye.
Bye. Bye.